Hello and happy midweek, and welcome to our today live session where we are going to be looking at how to handle conflict and resistance in Scrum. How do we handle conflict and resistance in Scrum? So we are going to be examining conflict resolution technique and what are the different strategy you can leverage if you work as a team lead, if you work as a Kanban lead, if you work as people as in a position where you manage people. What are some of the possible way you manage conflict, right? And definitely we want to make it conversational. We also want to hear from your perspective what are some of the techniques that you have employed in order to effectively manage conflict. And I will also look at some of the theoretical approaches, but then we'll look at what is a winning approach right here. So let me know where you're connecting from so that I can also give you a shout out and say hello and thanks for joining. All right, but as you know, we're gonna go straight to the topic without wasting much time. So our topic for today is center on conflict resolution and managing resistance. So the first thing you want to ask yourself, the first question you want to ask yourself is why conflict resolution, or why should we be concerned about conflict resolution? Right. And if you kind of want to look at why it's very important, you can examine the book, The Five Dysfunctioning of a Team, right? So that kind of gives you a reason why conflict resolution is very important. You can see so many books out there on conflict resolution. Now, one of the strategy of being an effective leader, or of being a good scrum master, or of being an effective facilitator is understanding the ability on how to relate scenarios that are happening within the scope of the environment into your own normal daily life. Before we go to start talking about conflict resolution technique, I want you to think about a time you had a conflict with someone, not even at workplace, right? What happened? A couple of things happen that lead to conflict. Number one is different in thinking. Right. You think this is the way things should be done, but the other party doesn't actually align with you. Because of that, you got into a conflict. Number two, difference in value. Right. Difference in value. Just because someone is in this camp, or just because someone chooses to do this way, and that's not what you buy in for, you think that, oh, this person, I can pull with them. Right. So there's a conflict. Number three, you don't really trust them, so you cannot buy into anything that they say because you kind of lose the trust, right? So the different reason why conflict can align. So what exactly is conflict? Now it's important for you to understand that conflict simply doesn't mean that we need to be physically fighting, or we need to be arguing against each other. It simply means there is conflict of ideology. There is conflict of ideology in a way that we think. Right. And most often, when there is conflict of ideology, it makes the conversation a difficult conversation to have because we are thinking from different perspectives. Right. But then you also we start thinking here that for people you actually respect them a lot, if they have a different in ideology, you will not be offended, right? Or you will not get into conflict with them. You probably will just laugh over it, right? Like, oh, that's the way you think, that's fine, right? But then for people whom you do not really respect, when you kind of differ with them, you want to pull well, you want to throw outward and all of that, right? So we're not seeing some of the baseline of how conflict comes in, and what are the basic root causes of conflict. The basic root causes of conflict is mainly due to difference in ideology. When you have differences in ideology, you want to justify yourself, and we don't kind of come to a common agreement, we are bound to be in conflict, which means that it's different in ideology that cannot be resolved with any communication or by mutual understanding. So in this way, conflict can arise because we are thinking differently. Conflict can arise because we don't communicate, right? Lack of communication in most of the cases is a baseline. I'm assuming that Diane is going to do this. I'm assuming that Bernadette will do this. I'm assuming that Charlene will do this. And Charlene is assuming that, oh no, I was thinking you would do it. So that is why I did not also do it. Right. So because of that, what happened? There is conflict of interest. Right. How do we handle conflict of interest? And this is also a question most of you will get when you're interviewing. How will you address conflict? Now, the question, how will you address conflict, for you to give an effective answer, is first of all to give them an ideology of what you understand as conflict. For me, conflict is about differences in value, differences in communication, and differences in ideology that have not been resolved. So when I look at conflict from this direction, it simply means that it's a malfunction that can be fixed, right? So that has already given me the power to know that, oh, this is something we can work on. And now I'll give you three different framework you can use to solve conflict. And then I'm also going to give you a non framework approach on how to solve conflict. And to me, I think the non framework approach is like the best way to approach it, right? And I also wanted to put in the comment section what have been some of the way you have been able to solve conflict so that we can learn from each other. So the first approach, I'm sure many people have not heard about this before. It's my approach, right? It's my approach. I call it the love technique, LOVE, the love technique, right? Why the love technique? All right. For majority of the conflict, it's because we don't take enough time to listen with our heart, right? We're listening to respond. So while we are listening, if it doesn't align with what we think, we're like, no, that's not the case, right? So we don't listen to our with our heart. Now, in order for you to resolve a conflict, you need to switch from listening in order to pick out what the person is saying and to put a justification what it's saying, and listening with your heart. Now, what's the difference of listening and listening with your heart? Now, when you listen from your heart, you can feel the person. You get into a place of empathy. You put yourself in that person's scenario and you get to understand from their perspective. When you listen with the heart, you put yourself in an environment where you can ask powerful questions in order to understand the person better. Otherwise, you're going to be listening in order to object the person, or in order to justify, or in order to give an analysis or feedback. So the love technique in addressing conflict, Earl says you listen with your heart, which means you listen from a place of empathy. Now, when you listen with your heart, the O, which is the second letter, start with what? You open your ear and your heart. So you're listening with your heart. Secondly, you're opening your ears, not just your ears, you're opening your heart because you want to be able to help them from a place of love. And love only comes from the heart, right? Now you realize that the people you actually respect and love, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you might not really like what they do, But what happened? You're able to open a place where you can find that empathy, and you can see like, okay, you know what? I did not really like what you did, but it's okay. We're gonna sort it out. Why? Because you are speaking from a place of love, right? So L, listen, which you had. O, open your ears and your heart, right? Now, these 2 points, when you listen with your heart and you open both your ears and your heart, it position you to a place where you actually care about the person. It gets you to a point where you now communicate from a point of respect. And that takes us to the V. V is where now you voice your concern, right? Now, when this is now the power of coaching. The power of coaching comes from what? All right, I do understand you, and I understand that you did not really do this from a place of wanting to show off, but you actually did this because of ABC perspective. You can only give this analysis after you have listened with your heart and after you have opened your heart and your ear to listen. Now, this is a point of connection where you're able to connect with the person you're working with. And now, when you voice your concern, it becomes like, oh, wow, I wish everybody could listen to me the way you do. Now, do you realize that some certain people, you like to talk to them like, oh, I know you're not going to listen to me, but there's some people you really want to talk to them. Why? Because these are the people who open their heart to listen, and even when they give you feedback, even if you are the person who was in the wrong, you realize that, oh wow, I did not think about it that way. Now they have a way, first of all, to understand you, and when they understand you, they connect with you, they are able to give you their feedback from a place of love, right? So L, listen. O, open your ears and your heart. V, voice your concern. Now, when you voice your concern should not be you creating your own word. Your concern is, okay, if I actually heard you were, you said A, B, C, D, you said C, E, and this, you said A. Now, you're repeating their narration to them. Now, that gives them the fact, that gives them a satisfaction that, oh, you actually listened to me. And secondly, why this is also very powerful technique is because when people are talking, they hardly listen to themselves. So when you take a pause and you voice it back to them, it's like now they're now listening from you, and they're giving a second thought to what they actually say. And this is the point where we do what the E comes in. You empower transformation to help someone move from a place of distrust to a place of trust is based on how you address them, and with a moment where you are talking to them by leveraging powerful questioning, by talking from a place of empathy, you are informing transformation at that time, at that point, from the way you communicate. So the last technique, L, listen, which listen, open your heart and listen. Then O, now L is listen, right? Listen with your heart. O, open your ears and your heart. V, voice your concern. Most often you voice your concern first by reiterating, if I did hear you were, you said this, you said this, you said this, and you said this. And now it's like, yeah. Now you route inform transformation, which is a empower transformation, which is the E. At that point, you now still draw from what they say, from what they said. So that is how you're able to drive it. But most often, when you introduce your own word, it seems like you're talking from your own word. All right. The second technique to conflict resolution, we are looking at now frameworks or theories that are out there. I know a lot of you have heard about the grow technique, right? Grow, like a tree is growing. GROW, right? Now, the grow technique is also a very powerful technique to conflict resolution, where the letter G stands for goal. Set a goal. Set a goal on what you really want to achieve. Why is it an important conflict for us to address? Now, when you set the goal, arrow means that what? We address the reality. What's the reality? We should not avoid the situation at hand. Let's talk about what is going on and let's look at what. When you address the reality, it gives you now O, which is an option. We look at what are possible options that we can set aside to address these challenges, and then we go to W. Now, what next? W is what next. After we set the goal, we look at the reality, we look at options that are available to us. What next? That's a growth technique. Now, there's another technique which I want to introduce to you. The reason we use framework is not that we definitely need to use framework. No, it's because they help you to easily memorize and then do what? And you can easily explain different concepts. Now, the tech technique which I want to share to you is called the care, like caregiver. Like I actually care. The tech technique of conflict resolution I want to share with you today is called the care technique. Right. Now, with the care technique, C stand for communicate, A stand for active listening, R stand for review your option, and then E stands for end with a solution. So, in order to resolve a conflict, we need first of all be to be open in communication. Right. Remember, one of the key value of Scrum is openness. We need to be open, which means that we I'm not trying to say this because it's Alan, it's Micah, it's Bernadette. So when you're trying to communicate based on the person you're talking to, you're not creating an environment for open communication. So communication is the key, but how we communicate, right? When we are open to communication, what happened? It gives you the opportunity to handle the matter, right? So obviously, you don't communicate because you want your point to be heard. You communicate because you want to be able to understand the scenario. That's why we see communicate. When you communicate, you want now to actively listen from the feedback. You communicate, you actively listen from the feedback. When you listen from the feedback, you're able now to draw options that will help resolve the conflict from the feedback, and that's where you're able to get a solution. All right. So those are three different techniques we'll look at. But then in reality, let's now look at how we handle conflict without attaching it to any framework. Right. First of all, conflict is as a result of difference in ideology, difference in the way of thinking. When you look at the Topman model on team building, since we're talking about Scrum, I want to take you a bit into team building. The Topman model of team building, it tells you that whenever a team is formed, right? A team is formed doesn't necessarily mean that it's a new team. When we talk about team formation, it simply means that one person adds into the team, right? You might be new getting into the team. That team is going back to a forming state because a foreign body has been introduced. Whenever a foreign body is introduced into the team, what happens? First, there is storming. People trying to learn you. Just imagine you have someone visit you at home the first time you have never seen them. What's going to happen? You just welcome that person and say, "Oh, have a seat. I'm just going to go to the grocery store. I'll be right back." No, it's the first time. It doesn't matter uh, how good the person look. You're skeptical. You're trying to study that person, right? So when there's that come together, which is formation, there is this trying to figure out who this person is, trying to there's that storming, right? Our brain is working out. I'm trying to see if this person is a good person. I'm trying to see this someone I can talk to. There's this storming that happened. And everyone in the team is trying to understand that person. And now, after we storm, now we now normalize. Now you start calming down or you start bringing yourself down in order to understand that person, right? You already have asked a couple of questions, then you start getting acquainted to that person. That now bring you to a normalized space. And now when you feel like, oh wow, I was thinking this person is going to be a difficult person to talk to, but they're so easy, they communicate good, I like the fact that they're open, what happened? You bond with them. And that get us to what? To the performing phase. Right. So when you think about the Topman model of team formation, you can it also help you to understand how you can resolve conflict. Now, the stage where conflict happen is when there is storming, which means that it's just about you trying to understand each other. As a scrum master, as a team coach, you don't address conflict when conflict arises. No, conflict, your ability to address conflict in your team start from how you're able to build a relationship. I'll give you an example here. If you have well, let me say, I come meet two of you, you're good friends, and you're arguing, and I come in and none of you actually know where I am, and I'm trying to help both of you solve the problem. What happened? Both of you are going to turn against me because both of you don't have respect for me. You don't know me from anywhere. So who invited you? Right. But then if I was a friend, right, and I meet two other friends arguing and I step in to intervene, they're going to listen because of their respect for me or because of the previous relationship that they have bear with me. So your ability to resolve conflict has little or nothing to do with this strategy. It has more to do with how relationships are being built. You agree with me that at certain time when you have a conflict, you look for someone whom both of you respect, and then you can table that matter to that person. And when that person step in to resolve it, someone's like, you know what, I'm listening to this only because of you, right? So the baseline of conflict resolution is to build trust. When people actually trust you, that they can now keep aside any difference and bring on board that respect that help them to listen to you. So which simply means that it's only a conflict because we did not align with communication. We actually were disagreeing with each other and we did not come to a place of agreement. Right. So when you build that trust with your team, you realize that when issue comes up, it doesn't matter how grievous they might be, it doesn't matter how hard they might be, because of the previous relationship, you will understand how to come in, right? Now, you also understand, I'm going to take example of, try to also evaluate for those who have kids, how your kid deal with you, right? When most of them realize that you're upset, what happened? They try to look for entry points or do things that you is going to kind of take out away your heart from there. Do things that you like. What are they doing? That's a strategy. They have studied you. They have better those relationships. They know what you like. So when they actually do what they don't like, or they do what you don't like, they know how to appease you by bringing in those points they have understood about you to try to bring your mind to a situation where you can solve that, right? So those are some of them. That's the biggest foundation. The biggest foundation in conflict resolution is building relationship. How do we build this relationship with our team? Creating one-on-one. Now, one-on-one, which a lot of people are still to get it, is not as a result to only learn about what you do, ABC. No, it's to create rapport. When I have a one-on-one with you, I'm paying attention not just to learning what you do, learn your personality, ask you a certain personal or no, not really, yeah, personal question, but not sensitive. Like, hey, where you from, right? And maybe go ahead to ask like, oh, what's up for the weekend? Right. And when you share all of those data with me, if I come back on Monday, like, oh, I remember you told me you were visiting ABCD. How did it go? What happened? I'm building a bond with you that you now feel like, oh, this person care about me. And it makes you at ease to communicate with me on a regular or on a casual basis, right? If something comes up, you feel at ease to talk with me because you feel like you're someone that cares. Now, compared to someone, they meet with you every day, but all they do is that, oh, I want you to show me this at work. Can you show me this? Or can you check to see if this is correct? Can you check to see if this is correct? Right? It doesn't matter how many one-on-one you have with that person. The relationship doesn't build trust. Why? It's a collaboration relationship that doesn't get to build trust. Now, trust is birthed from a place of from a place of empathy. And empathy is when you start thinking about other people as human and other people like yourself, which means you understand that aside the side that they're your colleague, aside the side that they're working, they're also human beings, and they owe the right to respect, and they also have other things they care about. So for you to build that trust, find out what your team care about apart from work. When you do that, trust me, you will not struggle to work with them, and you will not struggle for them to like you. All right. So we actually said a lot. As someone asked a question yesterday, which was how to handle difficult conversation. Right. Now, difficult conversation, number one, as a result of we don't actually understand each other, and all we communicate is from a place of work. So I'm going to put you at the spot at any time, T, because what I need from you is work, and I'm not even giving you an opportunity to say any other stuff. Right. So when you're faced in a position where you have difficult conversation to handle, you can actually excuse yourself and give yourself a break. Right. Okay. Thank you. Let me look at this and get back to you. I would really want to continue with this conversation, but I think I just need some time to look on it, right? This is a very hard conversation, right? But then you also might build that strength that help you to navigate towards hard conversation. And you do that by building or by working on what you call your personal development, right? Your emotional intelligence that make you feel selfless, which means that now people get upset when you get confrontation on hard conversation. They get because they are thinking, how can you be talking to me like this, like a whole me, like right? But when you grow out of yourself, you get to now not just think about you. You get to think about the conversation. You get to think about what actually necessitated the conversation, and you get to the root cause of stuff, and you don't get upset over little stuff. Okay, perfect. So we still have some time. I'm going to go ahead to take a couple of questions. If you have any questions in relation to conflict resolution, we can go ahead and handle that before we wrap up for today. And also, before we wrap up for today as well, giving out 5 spot for those who want free consultation on Agile on Agile, your Agile journey. It doesn't matter where you are. If you want 30-minute free conversation, it's first come first serve. You can send me a direct message on LinkedIn, and I'll be able to share my calendar link. If I share my calendar link and you don't see a spot, uh maybe just revisit that again after 24 hours. There might be a spot that open from there. But at this time around, I definitely want to take your questions. Any questions so far? And thank you for everybody. Thank you everybody for joining. Do make sure we are actually this take some time to really teach about some concept, and I went straight to it. So if you can hit the share button so that someone can also benefit from this video later on, this is going to be great. For the meantime, let's do some questions and answers. And a question and answer for those who want to reach to me directly. That's also my number on the screen. You can reach. Oh, I need some help. I need some coaching help. I need A, B, C, D. We can work that out and see how we can be of help to you. Right. And tomorrow is a Thursday. On YouTube tomorrow, I'll be releasing a video, which I think everyone should watch that video. Right. I'll be releasing a video on how to stay consistent when you don't get the result, especially for those who are actually in the job market now, right? The job market seems a very bit tight. What can you do to make sure you don't give up? Many people are already giving up. Oh, it's too tight. I'm not getting anything. I'm losing strength. What do you do when you are not getting the result? what are the different strategy you can do to stay on top of your game. So I'm going to be handling that on my tomorrow video on YouTube. Okay, perfect. It seems everybody actually got it and no one have a question for today. So thank you very much for listening. Tomorrow I'm not gonna come on live. Um Friday I will do a live video at 12:30. Tomorrow no live video, but Friday I'll do a live video at the same time 12:30, and the video I want to do on Friday is going to be all you need to know about Scale Agile. All you need to know about Scale Agile. Should I have a certification on Scale Agile? What are the career growth options in Scale Agile? Apart from just having a scrum job with Scale Agile, what else can I do with Scale Agile? Right, Scale Agile, most especially for those who are passionate about Scrum, is just beyond doing the certification to get a job. Right, when you understand sometimes the reason why you should do those certification, you realize that you have so much power in your hand. Right, for most of us, our power end by, I'm getting this because I need a job. Now I don't have a job, so there's no need for this. No, it's something far, far beyond that. All right, everybody. I'll see you on the other side. Do have a great midweek.